I'm Craig Fisher, and this is Inside Talent, where we take you into the minds behind the scenes and show you some of the coolest tools and best practices of some of the coolest people in the talent industry. And we are live. It's Craig Fisher. I'm here with Jim Schnyder. Jim, how is it going?
Everything is good. I am safely locked in my house and practicing social distancing. So, trying to be as safe as I can, right? So how about like everybody else? How are you, man?
Man, I'm great. So also safely locked in my house. I've been one of the people that, even though Texas has sort of been out of complete lockdown for several weeks and kind of started to open back up, I've been one of the people that still wears a mask most of the places I go. We have some outdoor get-togethers with neighbors and family, but
Sure.
we stay pretty safely far apart. But we've gone out to a couple of restaurants in the last few weeks, and apparently that's going to change starting today.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, and we're back in mask mode everywhere you go in Texas. So
true. Yeah, I mean, for me, about the same thing, man. The only time that I go out is to get a haircut. So, I mean, I'm in need of another one right now. So heading out today to get that. But yeah, but how's everything else been?
Good. So, we had a live outdoor graduation for my oldest son, which was interesting. And they had tape. You had assigned seats, and so you were kind of scheduled and scattered apart. It was amazing seeing, I don't know how many they graduated, 600 or something, at South Lake and Dragon Stadium. See these kids all spread out 6 feet apart, all across the stadium.
Wow.
But they got to have a graduation, which was really cool because we didn't think that was going to happen.
Well, we all know, I mean, South Lake Dragon Stadium is huge. I mean, you've had professional soccer teams have their seasons there. So yeah, I know what you're talking about. But Texas, everything's bigger in Texas, right?
Everything's bigger in Texas. That's right. So it's funny. I was talking to Chris Brogan earlier today. We went live, and he's got a kid the same age, and we literally the kids in this grade were all born into 9/11.
Oh, wow.
Right? And they're all graduating during COVID. So that's a really strange time for them. And it's really going to be an interesting class to watch.
Yeah, no kidding. So a lot of things that we haven't had to deal with, and, almost feels like a half year or a semester that they're going to not have been able to experience. So I'm glad. It's really good to see a lot of people, the way that they have, done things to help some of those kids and different things like that. So, but cool.
Well, so
what's coming up? We got TalentNet coming up, right?
We do. We have TalentNet coming up. So I just noticed I haven't changed the banner on the TalentNet Facebook page to update the date, but July 17th, we're going to have a virtual event on the Hop-In platform. And I don't know if you've seen that, but it's really cool.
I'm a big fan of that. That's my favorite. Yeah. Are we okay to talk about that for just a couple seconds?
Yeah, absolutely.
So here's what I love about Hop-In. I think the biggest thing that everybody's doing, and, we'll probably, however we want to talk about, whatever we talk about today, me, I'm like, we'll go all over the place.
Oh yeah.
But I think really everybody now with, kind of sheltering in place kind of thing is events and the platforms. And I think the platform that you use is absolutely, it helps with just the feel. And I know what you're going to be using for TalentNet with Hop-In. I saw it, had the opportunity to be a part of it. And there's a feature in there, which I hope you can turn off or you can turn on. I hope you use it, which is that meet, that one-on-one meetings that you can have for networking. So for anybody that's, I'll give you a little commercial here. I mean, you'll probably talk about it here in a second, but for anybody that hasn't used Hop-In, I'm a big fan of it. And the way it works is that you have, imagine Zoom, except you've got experiential rooms. The first one is the big speaker room where everybody can chat and everybody's on mute, and obviously no cameras because be really distracting. You've got the one person that you're seeing and watching for the event.
Or panel.
What's that?
Or panel.
Or panel. Yeah, thank you. That's perfect. Yeah, because you can do whatever. The cool thing is knowing the back end of it, you've got a stage and you got a backstage, and you can keep people back and you can move them up to the front. So it's really, really cool from an administration standpoint. But the second thing is the other is you can have breakout rooms. And so you can have moderated breakout rooms. So people then can go to the topic of their choice. And then from there, they can do the one-on-one meetup, which is my favorite piece, which is almost like, it's a weird kind of, you don't know who you're going to be able to talk to.
It's like chat roulette.
Yep. Yeah, it is. It's like chat roulette. But the cool thing I like about, and you get to set the time of how long the conversation is, right? 5 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever. And I actually prefer the 2 minute because it keeps the things going. But the last thing, and this is probably what you will like, is it's got an exhibitor or a vendor area, which you'll probably have on, which is good. Good to hear.
Yeah. I participated in the recruiting automation conference.
I did too.
I thought it was really, really cool. And they had a room that was just puppies. Right? And they had a room for, other like sort of interesting distractions where you could go take a break. It
was like a relaxation room. You could go in it.
Yeah, and we'll have all those things as well. In fact, we'll even also have a magician as entertainment. So
nice.
A friend of mine here in South Lake is a live close-up magician and is amazing. Is trained with David Blaine, and his name's Jim Monroe. And shout out to Jim if you're watching. By the way, you're going to be part of this event.
Yeah, love it. I'll take a peek at some of his stuff. So
yes, and I expect that you'll also be part of this event, Jim. And there'll be a few of us in a studio, if we're allowed to by this point, together, sort of safely distanced apart, but on camera, moderating and hosting the whole time, which I think is going to be really great. Also, this just in, I think we're going to have one of the breakout rooms the entire time dedicated to diversity, inclusion, belonging, and equality for the entire 4 hours. And I think that room is going to be hosted and moderated by Matt Charney, which is going to be fun and interesting for sure.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting.
It will be very interesting. Yes.
Sure.
And so a lot of our close friends in the community are going to be participating in this. You can see a lot of the faces and names at talentnetlive.com, and also get very inexpensive tickets. If you would prefer to donate some of your time to helping a job seeker with their resume or LinkedIn profile, you can message me directly and I will set that up in exchange for a ticket price. So there you go.
Good.
Yeah. A little giving back.
We've had some TalentNet history, right? So I think that going back to the very first one.
Let's talk about that.
What's that?
Let's talk about that.
You want to? Sure. I mean, you had your TalentNet. TalentNet actually started, if I recall, as a Twitter. Was it a chat?
It was the first ever Twitter chat.
Yeah.
And we met once a week, and we all had our drinks of choice. It started at 8 p.m. in the evening and went for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And people from all over the world would join us to talk about, is social media good for recruiting, among other things.
Yeah.
And Jerry from the Recruiting Animal Show would play a Pandora playlist and share the link so we could all listen to the same tunes while we were Twittering away. And that became a podcast as well. That was for a long time produced by Matt Charney and Crystal Miller. And Mary Anthony Verver was also a part of that.
Yeah.
And at one point we were having a Twitter chat about the fact that nobody can afford to go to an expensive conference on the coast at that point. This is 2008, I believe, and nobody had budget for a SHRM or an HR tech.
Right.
And so we got together and somebody said, hey, you've got all this talent right there in Dallas. Why don't we just do our own live event and make it affordable? And that's what we did. You and I and Brandon Barber and some other people got together and formed a committee. Chris Hoyt was on the committee. There was a bunch of people. We formed a committee and we decided, how we were going to do it, how we were going to approach it. We were very practical and project management oriented about it.
Sure.
We had meetings and we planned a conference, and it was, we're like, we don't know how many people are going to show up, but A ton of people showed up. It was amazing.
Yeah, well, it was kind of cool. I mean, I think you selected a good committee because it just had some people who may have had a venue that could be there, donated or whatever at the time, right? So we had the first one back when I was with PepsiCo before I started my own company. We had the first one there, and I mean, it was amazing. You know,
Right.
so it was great to watch it grow, and just to watch and see how much the Dallas community, the sourcing community, really came together, and this became kind of that go-to event that everyone would. You know, I think I'm even on an interview somewhere with you that, you know, I go to TalentNet to learn. You know, it's kind of because it's so many great, so many smart minds and people that you go to learn. You present at other conferences, but a lot of times you go to TalentNet to learn because
Yeah,
so much to share.
it's kind of the conference where we all want to show off our coolest new things to our peers.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
And so, you know, it's not just regurgitated content. It's stuff that we really make an effort to bring our smartest tricks and cool ideas to try out in front of, you know, the smartest folks we know. So
Absolutely.
TalentNet is a place where you walk out of there with pages and pages of notes of things that you can start doing the next day, which I really think is cool. Also, we bring people from the audience who we think are really, you know, good contributors up on stage the next year. Like that's how I find new voices all the time. People come to TalentNet and show an interest and are really dialed in. You know, you may get selected to be in the next show, which is great.
Yeah, which is always really cool.
So in that first event, it was September 1st, or was it September 11th?
It was, oh wow, it was
September 1st.
September, or we did the next year was September 11th. I can't remember.
Yeah, but we did we gave money to.
It was a donation.
Yeah, we gave a donation to veterans and to the 9/11 Foundation.
Yeah.
For you know, in celebration and remembrance of that tragic event, right? And you know, this was always near and dear to me because my son was born on 9/11/01.
Oh wow.
No, 9/1/01. So it was 9/11 when the conference was. He was born on 9/1/01, and I was still home on paternity leave when 9/11 happened, and so I remember everything playing out. And with a newborn, it was kind of crazy. Yeah, so that always is gonna. We need to do a shout out to a couple of people who've chimed in here. So
I've been watching the streams. So.
We've got Mark Mapes, Rachel Duran, David Aramillo. Hi guys, great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, just some folks in the crowd, right?
Yeah, this is fun. So that first year, it was pretty amazing because one of the people who had been a big part of the Twitter chat was Bill Borman. So he'd be up from like 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. his time, chiming into the Twitter chat, and we asked him to come over and do you know,
he did the closing keynote, right?
Yeah, and it was his first big keynote presentation. No hat, full suit.
I remember as well. Yeah, you did great. It was fun.
And so he did that, and our event was not. It was kind of unconferencey in the fact that it was very conversational. Yeah. Right. It wasn't just presentations. It was very interactive. And so he went to that, and then he went to Recruit Fest in Toronto, I think. And from those two things, he went home and built the Recruiting Unconference, the True Conferences, that very same year. So he and I both celebrated 10 years of doing conferences in December of last year, which is really cool.
Wow.
Very cool. So let me see. You've got a really interesting business that I think, you know, you're one of my models for how to pivot into a new role, because you've basically become the CRM expert, and you've taken, Avature, one of your favorite CRMs, and made that one of your specialties, and they sort of employ you as the guy to help do, customer installations and setup. So tell me about that, and tell me how you, got into that, what started it, and how that pivot went.
Yeah, no worries. Now, the word employ, a little bit different than that. I don't take no dollars or anything that I get from them, but
right.
It's one of those where I started at PepsiCo. I did an implementation. I real quick, for people that don't know my background, 17 years at PepsiCo, stood up the sourcing team there, implemented all the IT, did a number of the ATS implementations while I was there. So kind of would go to various conferences like the Avature user conference. And I was one of the guys that would basically be, I became the MC of the power user track. So kind of the voice of customers. And a lot of people were saying, hey, what you did at PepsiCo and the way that you did some of those things, how did you do it, or what can we do? And I just found that there was a real appetite for that kind of way. I would take the tool and just basic some CRM concepts out there and kind of make the tool do some new things, coming from a sourcing background myself and being an ex-agency recruiter. So had the opportunity to start my own company, which in hindsight, wish I would have done a long time ago, given how much fun I'm having. And it's been really successful. Got a great group of clients and people that I've been able to help out. But it's one where it just kind of all fell into place. It turned out I get to do something which I love, which is working with systems and helping teams and helping with them training, but also configuring and inventing, using a platform or various platforms and inventing something that will help them, I don't want to say in the war for talent, but help them with the recruiting processes and everything else. So it's been, starting Recruiting Advisors, my company has been just really cool. So having a lot of fun. So but you've got to see, and thank you as being one of the people that I actually, when I was launching, that I reached out to and I said, hey, give me some advice on some things, how I might want to position, et cetera. So I want to say thank you as somebody for that one.
And absolutely, you and I have these conversations on a regular basis anyway, right? Like, what should we be doing now? What should we be thinking about?
Except it's not at noon, and we usually have something in our hand, right?
That's true. It's a little
later in the afternoon.
Yeah. Is it Friday? Gosh,
it is Friday.
It's going to be cocktail time at some point soon.
Exactly. But we usually do have these conversations like this. Yeah.
That's right. Well, I had an interesting conversation earlier this week. Actually, I think it was on the Who You Know show last week. Anyway, it was some advice that I give job seekers is, if you are trying to pivot into a new kind of role, envision your career as, standing on the edge of a pond. If you want to get over here, it's very difficult to jump across the pond, but you can go sideways around the pond, right? And pivot into the vendors and the customers and the companies that did business with you in your old role, and appreciate what you did there. And so, you're making your way over here, and you may end up, doing something, even slightly different later on, but you're doing that transitional around the pond versus trying to jump across, which I think is really smart.
Yeah, well, thanks. I appreciate that. I was having a conversation just yesterday, actually, with are you familiar with Nikeo?
Yeah.
So I was talking to him from time to time, quick conversations with him. Love him, love his attitude, everything that he's doing in the recruiting industry. And we were just talking. He works for Batman and is just really a great up and comer. And he was reaching out and was like, hey, what are some things that I can do, work on, not for me, but just in as a mentor, something kind of thing. And I said, one of the things, and exactly what you're talking about here, I said, one of the things that I found that's helped me in my career and even with my business is kind of assuming that agile concept, the Deming, if you ever studied Deming model, adopt, adapt, adapt. You take an idea, you adopt it, you adapt it as your own, and then become a more adept at it. And you also have to pivot a lot. And I said, man, I've reinvented myself within my career 4, 5, 6 times. I started as a agency recruiter, corporate recruiter. Then I was like global process and tools lead for PepsiCo, sourcing lead. You know, it's like, so always be trying to learn new things and invent and be innovative. And I said, you know, and I was telling them, and exactly what you were talking about going around, and sometimes the way you pivot, it's about learning, innovating, and then running with the idea and making it reality. So yeah, sometimes it's just things fall into your lap too. And it's like, how do I make this happen? So,
right. Yeah. Well, and you know, so I always tell everyone, start your LLC early and often, right? I mean, always have your consulting business running in the background, so you never have a gap in your resume if you get laid off, or if you're between employers, or if you decide to take time off, whatever. You can always fall back on that consulting work if you've got expertise that people, you know, want. And I think, you know, most people do. But name it something innocuous enough that you can make all the pivots you want within it.
Exactly. And that's where I had, you know, I had some crazy, and your point was well taken, because I came up with some crazy initial you know, some ideas of what I should call it. And what's even more interesting is when I came up with recruiting advisors, which is what I wanted, the URL was actually not available. And so I had to go out and actually procure that and make sure that I got it. So yeah, what you're talking about is absolutely true. Make it broad enough that you can pivot, because like, for instance, right now with recruiting advisors, what if I pivot in different directions? If I would have just said this or this or this, you find that where the market goes, like let's say that right now I wanted to get, not that I am, but if I wanted to get into the events planning market, which is super hot right now, you know, having it under the umbrella of recruiting advisors, I could do that if I wanted, but not planning on it. But
you know, it's funny. I'm actually having people kind of come out of the woodwork to ask me to help them plan and produce online events. Yeah. And so, you know,
maybe I need to talk about that then and do that, right? Yeah. So I'm like, not planning on it, but so, yeah, it sounds like there's definitely a demand for it, right?
Well, there is. And so, you know, having TalentNet Media as my consulting business all the time, and having TalentNet Events as my events business, I mean, there's all these ways I can pivot, because I do a lot of different things, right? I mean, I help companies with employer brand strategy. I help employer brand vendors with customer stories and case studies and things like that. And I train sales teams and recruiting teams on personal brand, and I help job seekers with LinkedIn optimization and executive coaching. And, you know, I do all this different stuff, but it's under a thing that's innocuous enough, TalentNet, that it can be broad. So I feel your genius in naming.
It's always like, you know, opportunity. I think if you really, really, really think about it, the people that are successful in a long-term career in talent acquisition and recruiting and HR are people that constantly have to innovate. They almost have to be entrepreneurs. And, you know, there's a little known thing that, you know, I actually was very entrepreneurial from even in college. I had my own company and, you know, won collegiate entrepreneur of the year. I don't talk about that much, but, you know, it's always one of those things. And when you go inside of a company, if you can be entrepreneurial, all of your stuff is going within the company, and you're constantly almost running a small business within the company's benefiting. You aren't as much, but your brand is. So, but then when you go off, and hopefully if you ever go off on your own, it's just kind of like this tidal wave that comes with you, which is great. So I was happy to say.
Yeah, and speaking of being entrepreneurial, you're doing a lot of things, right? I mean, you've helped SourceCon Dallas
DFW,
to become SourceCon DFW to become a real thing, and now ATAP and DFWTRN. So you're constantly in the mix here. So talk about some of these other ventures that you are and have been associated with.
Sure. Actually started with DFWTRN, Texas Recruiters Network. You know, always been involved with that as a kind of a local organization. And then when with SourceCon, as we were building and getting it a little bit larger, started breaking out into having small little local communities. And that's where kind of springboarding off of my connections through the DFWTRN, and also being a SourceCon Grand Master, knowing the kind of SourceCon community, launching and helping to build the SourceCon DFW community. So we have meetups, and if you're not a member of the SourceCon DFW chapter, by all means, join that. And then, I was just, my first meeting is actually on Monday for ATAP. I was just elected to the board of that. So I'm really excited to be able to help with that, and being a larger member of like the larger community for outside of specifically to Dallas for that. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah. So just a couple of things going on right now,
Yeah, just one or two.
Yeah.
So how are you working with customers now virtually? How's that going? And are things picking up? What's going on?
Obviously, things have stayed right about like this. Projects that I've been working on that had end dates. Those end dates where normally I would be renewed for like another contract and other things. Those are kind of shut down. But for healthcare customers, that's been really, really big for me right now. So I've had a big book of business from healthcare. So all of that has, it's basically been untouched. So I do a lot with that. The way I work with customers is a lot of times it'll be based on, they'll want to do something and it'll come to me with, they'll hear about me. A lot of times it's just because, and I don't do a lot with marketing. A lot of it's by word of mouth. People just kind of seek me out, find me. I don't know how, whatever, I don't care, but they usually are referred. And it's because they've said to someone, I'm looking for a way to do this, or I'm looking for a way to do that. And so I tend to know the back end technology and have the ability of building. I have a unique set of skills. I don't know how you say that, like Liam Neeson from Taken or whatever like that, but to where not only can I come up with the concept, but actually I can build it and be because I'm a sourcer by trade, I have the technology background, kind of consultant, I can just come in and I can almost be the business analyst that's hearing what they need. I can take what they need and understand it, and then actually build the beta prototype, test it, and then actually deliver it, and the stuff that I'm typically doing are not available today because I'm building it from scratch. It's usually never been done. It's something that's a new concept or whatever, but it's usually using a platform that is available out there. So take, for instance, like the Avature system, which is a CRM favorite of mine, that drip campaigns, right, where for one of my healthcare customers up in Seattle, just did a 6 month basic drip campaign using the tool with crazy capabilities. That is it's some of that's been done, but not the way that the customer was needing it, wanting it, whatever. So and been doing some things like Ernst & Young. One of my past customers needed something for a unique network that they had, and I was able to leverage some technology to help them come up with an idea of building a kind of a gated, we call it gated community, but kind of a password protected community, to where could invite only and have conversations amongst these members of a network, and then be able to have, if opportunities become available, share opportunities. And so next step with that is to hopefully be able to have some sort of community feel, instead of it being more one way, two way, but more community. And that's where I'm going.
So interesting that you say that, because I've had these thoughts that if you have a talent community, and most employers at this point have either thought about it or have done it and built this, but all they're really doing is building a list that you can do drip campaigns to. But it's not
through a megaphone, right?
It's not much of a community, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's one way.
But what if you had events for those people in your community, right? And now that we've got these great platforms, why not have regular events for the community, right? Yeah. And so I think, and not just webinars. I mean events where people are talking to each other.
Exactly.
And I feel like that this is a great opportunity and a great time in the world for something like that.
Yeah, and that's not to tip the hand too much, and I already have talked a little bit about what I'm doing, but that is what I'm building right now.
So Alan Fleur wants to know what platform you use for that.
For which one? Well, I guess, Alan, I'll explain both. For the drip campaigns, that both of those were Avature. So the drip campaign is Avature, and the pipeline / network is Avature as well. So
cool. All right. So along those lines, is there and you're a sourcer, right? That's your deal. You're good with the drip campaigns. You're good with the CRMs, but you like sourcing tools, and you're a several time SourceCon Grand Master. Do you have a sourcing tool that you are really liking right now that helps you sort of source customers, do business development, things like that?
Interesting. For business development and sourcing, etc. It's the one tool that I'm really loving right now, and it's not for business development, but the tool that I'm really loving right now is ZapInfo.
Yeah.
So it may not be the answer that you're looking for, but and I'll come back to that. ZapInfo, really like that platform. I like what it does, and I like what it enables for a lot of people in our space. It gives the enrichment capabilities that people are looking for, because what happens is when people come into systems, how do you make it to where their data from, say, LinkedIn, or the data that's in the ATS, or the data that's in your CRM, how do you get it refreshed? ZapInfo unlocks a lot of that, and also on the way in, it can enrich the data by finding email addresses, blah blah blah. So, so many people use LinkedIn, and so that's my fave. And then if you want me to answer your other question here after you chime in here in a second, but I can go there too. But
so something I found fascinating about ZapInfo, I'm participating or speaking in all of these online events, right? And you can zap the events. So when we were on that Hop-In conference, I zapped a full list of all the participants, and ZapInfo went out and found all of their LinkedIn pages and lots more. So just a little hot tip there. It might not be as kosher as it should be, but I think it's perfectly legit.
Given what we're talking about with events as well, maybe that might be an excellent tip as on a go forward basis. So, I do a lot with CRMs, and obviously that I talk a lot about Avature. I'm the Avature, I just tend to play in that space a lot because I've been using it for 6-7 years, etc. But there are certain situations, especially with whether it be smaller companies or they don't want to use Avature. I mean, it can't be the solution for everyone. There is another tool that's out there that I am absolutely impressed with that is an end-to-end, and that is Loxo. I'm a big fan of Loxo because they've got an end-to-end CRM, and it has other pieces in it as well, but they now have this piece within, which is Loxo Source, which I am a big fan of that, because it allows you to have the equivalent of almost like a LinkedIn recruiter in the platform. You can't export, which I think you can, but I mean, it's like not made to export. So you take their information and then you can use it within the system.
Right.
But man, they have like 500 million people in this system, and like right now, the reason I'm really kind of talking about it is that you can go online and get it for free. Like you go in, log in, test it out for free, and be able to see some of this stuff. So I'm just like, dang, it's good.
So tell people where they can find that. How's it spelled? All that stuff.
Loxo.co, I think is what it is.
I think that's right. Yeah.
So because I think I did IO one time, and that's not the right one, but
I think it's .co.
But yeah, I mean, I talk about that just because, I try to obviously know a number of the tools that are out there. You know how it goes, man. You've been in this business for so long. You have your preferred tools. You have your ones, are the ones that are, growing, emerging, all the other stuff. And you just kind of know what the tools are. So, and but I will say I was at the Avature user online conference the other day. And holy mackerel, I got a peek under the tent of what's coming down the pike. And then within the next 6 months, my head exploded. I mean, so imagine me being this guy and just going, oh, wow, what's on the horizon? It's like seeing all the new features that are coming up on the Ferrari that, is like, you're like, what? So yeah.
That's fun. I love seeing that stuff. I'm a big fan. So I would say that that's a good note to end on.
Yeah.
But I think we've got a couple other things to talk about.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why.
Why?
This is the time where we play Let's Get to Know Jim. So, Jim, how's the family? What hobbies are you doing? What's happening with you?
You mean we need to talk about things that are not business?
That's right.
Let's see. Family is good. My wife works at PepsiCo. She is, category manager for in the food service side. Has Cisco as her customer. Probably more than she'd want me to talk about right now on a thing that's going on across the world. Son and daughter both play the bass, and they're doing double bass lessons in the house with with all that fun stuff. So personal wise, things are good. Trying to give back whenever I can, to friends and different things. I'm a member of a number of different organizations outside of, I try to be with professionally, but with, a lot of people don't know I'm a member of the Masons. So I'm a member of the Frisco Masons and little, Knights Templar, all that other stuff that a lot of people don't know about. But if anybody is interested in doing something, I will say this is something that I just did, and it's still out there. Is a friend of mine, his house got struck by lightning the other day, just like within the last 72 hours, and I put together a GoFundMe page for him and his family to help. It's out there as GoFundMe.com/F/Williams Family Frisco. So we're accepting donations for the family, trying to help them out. So when you say, what am I doing? I'm definitely doing a lot that, work and all that other fun stuff. How about you, man? So you only have one, you don't put the kids' names out there, right? It's only 1, 2, and 3, right?
Well, so number one, I've started putting his name out there because he turned 18 and now he can fend for himself.
Yeah.
Aaron Flores says hi. Hi, Aaron Flores.
There you go.
Yeah. So yeah, his name is Chase, for the record. But
really?
numbers,
You get to know his name. Okay.
That's right. But numbers 2 and 3, son, they're still anonymous.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the deal. But we've been having, we've been enjoying this for the, to the extent that you can, being together. And, we hosted our little 4-year-old nephew for the weekend a couple of weeks ago. And my kids just had a blast with him. A lot of swimming, a lot of puzzles, all that sort of thing. But we moved to a new house at the end of March.
Yeah,
and that was kind of a crazy thing to do in the middle of a global pandemic where you're supposed to be on lockdown, to have people come move all your stuff. But we've had a really good time setting this place up and getting to know our neighbors, and just no better time in the world, I would think, to be able to do something like that. Although I wish the circumstances in the world were different. But all that being said, life's pretty good here, and it's back to masks today, Jim. So here we are in Texas.
I know it's about to be mandatory for everybody. So, it's I don't know if this is going to be recorded or captured or whatever, but it's almost like a weird time capsule about what's been going on in our lives, and to maybe look back in this in like 10 years or something, and just be like, this is what was going on in our world at the time. How we're having to think about, crazy stuff like disinfecting our groceries on the way into the house, and stuff like that. So, but
yeah. And also, will we be live in person at Toyota on November 20th for TalentNet Dallas?
Yeah, very true. That's another thing to be thinking about as well. So
we just don't know yet. Yeah.
And roll with what you can do. And as we were talking about pivoting, way early in this conversation,
yeah,
I started babbling about whatever I was babbling about. It's pivoting with what we have to pivot with, So.
I think I will probably end up using Hopin or something like it to broadcast TalentNet from here on out, even if we are live in a room together.
I would, because it's a platform that allows you to do tickets. I think you've seen it as well on the back end, that you can do tickets, and the ease of being able to use it and just interface in. You can use a video platform like this one, and you can plug it in. I love the backstage piece. You have to have that. So, but yeah, I would definitely say that the future state of events is definitely different. And I think that we're seeing with Zoom and other things, the disruption that's occurring in our industry, with everything being more, it is okay for us to be able to be sitting at our house and not going out. But
that's right.
We are social animals from like recruiters. So being caged up inside, I mean, I can just imagine, like our first events, it's going to be, we're all, it'll be like, how you doing? How you doing? Hey, I haven't seen you in a while, And so, yeah, that'll be interesting as well. So.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And hopefully we'll get to do that sooner rather than later. We shall see.
November, right? Hopefully, right?
November 20th, hopefully. But if you want to join Jim and I sooner than that, July 17th, virtual TalentNet event for TalentNet Austin. We'll be there from 1 to 5 on that day. And you can find more about it at talentnetlive.com. Jim Schnyder, thank you. As always, it's been wonderful.
My pleasure. All right. And thanks for everybody that tuned in and watched this. So
yeah.
Thanks, Greg. As always, great catching up with you, man. All right.
See you soon. Thank you for listening to Inside Talent. Learn more about the future of talent today at insidetalent.org, where you can sign up for regular updates, and you can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast app.